I slid into my husband's car and popped open the glove compartment, half looking for napkins, half looking for proof of a feeling I didn't want to name. My fingers brushed a small plastic tube. Not mine, not ours. I didn't say a word. I simply closed the compartment, took it to the kitchen a few minutes later, and swapped it for something that looks the same but clings like judgment. Then I put it back exactly as I'd found it. What happened afterward would have the cold sack dialing emergency services in a frenzy. Thank you for being here with me. If you're listening, tap like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments which city you're hearing this story of payback from. I want to see how far the truth can travel. I sat at our kitchen table, the quiet pressing down as heavy as early morning fog. That quiet had been living here for a while now, uninvited but familiar. The wedding clock my late mother gave us ticked, loud and accusing, as though it alone knew the timeline of our life and all the edits he'd made without me. The rhythm said what I wouldn't. Maybe this marriage was a pretty painting hung over a cracked wall. Julian came home from yet another of his endless business dinners. He didn't look tired in the ordinary way. He looked burdened, like a man who'd been carrying a secret so long his posture had learned to bow to it. New lines had staked claims around his eyes and mouth. He dropped his jacket on the sofa, loosened his tie like a man escaping a noose, and fell onto the bed without a shower. The room still held the bite of his cologne, but threaded through it was a new scent, sweet, floral, and bold enough to enter the room before its owner. It didn't belong to us. Minutes later, his snoring floated down the hall once. That sound soothed me. Tonight it sounded like a lullaby for a fool. I moved the way a wife who has kept house for 4 decades moves, quiet, practiced invisible. I tidied the trail he'd shed across the living room: jacket, wallet, phone. The battered old laptop he refused to replace. His phone screen glowed with a fresh email. I frowned. Email. Julian always avoided it. Jules, he'd say with a self-deprecating grin, I'm an old dog. I call people. Yet here was an email, center stage, refusing to dim. Curiosity is a lockpick we learn young. I opened it. Just a few words, enough to split a life down the middle. You were incredible tonight, Dad. A red heart pulsed next to it. I went still, as if the air itself slapped me. Dad. Who used that word with him, wrapped in intimacy and a heart? I scrolled for context. Nothing. An odd address, like scrambled letters. No name, no face, just a mask. A draft slid through my soul, the kind that slips under a door you thought was sealed. I looked toward the bedroom. Julian rolled, snorted, went quiet again. Peaceful, untouched by storms that were tearing the wallpaper off my mind. I set the phone back, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped it. I kept moving, mechanical, automatic, gathered his discarded clothes. In the pants pocket a crisp receipt. I unfolded it. A high-end steakhouse. San Antonio, tonight's date. San Antonio, he'd said Dallas. A brittle laugh escaped me. He always complained about driving to Dallas. But San Antonio, that was nostalgia territory for him, his mother's old town, stories he'd relished retelling. The receipt listed 2 entrées, a fancy cabernet he'd once chosen for our 10th anniversary. The one I can still taste when I close my eyes. And mains of filet and pasta. When was the last time he took me somewhere like that? Maybe the night I opened my first bakery. There'd been candlelight then, a proud toast, the soft gold of being seen. Now the memory felt smudged, like a photograph left in the sun. I snapped photos of the receipt and the email. I didn't want to believe what I already knew. 4 decades of marriage stretches a sixth sense inside a woman, thread-fine and unbreakable. I headed to the garage. The old SUV was still warm. The cabin smelled of petrol and something sweet and foreign. I searched the console, the cup holders, the shadows, loose coins, an empty bottle. Then, in the glove box, my fingers touched that same slick, unlovely tube again. Used. The cap ringed with residue. We hadn't been close in years. He'd shrugged it off with age, fatigue, stress. So who was this for? I put it back exactly, wiped my hands like I could erase the betrayal crawling across my skin, and kept searching. Under the back seat, I found crumpled napkins carrying the same sugary, perfumed scent. Not mine, not any man's aftershave, something insistently feminine. I photographed everything, the tube, the napkins, like evidence might bottle a smell and the way it makes your stomach turn. Back at the table, I opened his phone again. Texts, sterile conversations with coworkers. Emails scrubbed clean except for that one glowing message. Drafts, trash, nothing. The emptiness itself felt like a confession. He'd learned how to vanish his tracks. A cold, hard stone settled where my heart had been pounding. I didn't need to scream. I needed facts. By dawn's first gray light, I was already up, a ghost floating through my own kitchen. The images spun in my mind like a poisoned carousel, the email, the receipt, the tube. I made eggs, toast, and black coffee the way he likes. I hadn't slept. He shuffled in, hair wild, voice gravelly. "I've got an important meeting today," he said to the mug, not to me. The line came so easy he didn't need to think about it. "I'll probably be late." The casualness chilled me. He had become fluent in lies. I smiled the polite smile wives learn when truth would explode the room. "All right, be careful." He squeezed my shoulder, an old reflex that felt like tapping a stranger on the arm, and left, the door shut. The house swallowed the echo. Dishes done, hands dried. I reached for a name I hadn't spoken in ages. Mrs. Miller, the kind woman who'd guided me through supplier contracts when the bakery was just a dream. Years ago she'd said lightly, "If you ever need a discreet investigator, I know someone, Thomas." Good man. I never imagined dialing her for that. Yet there I was, each ring beating time with my scattered pulse. "Juliet," she answered, voice soft with worry. "What happened?" "I need the truth," I said, and that was all I could manage without crying into the phone. An hour later, a message from a number I didn't know. "Mrs. Roberts, I can meet at noon. Small cafe on Maple." Thomas short, steady, like a hand extended. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and rainy days. I chose a corner no one would notice. Thomas arrived, middle-aged, compact, buttoned into a light blue shirt, eyes that looked like they read people for a living. I slid a small drive across the table, photos of the email, the receipt, the tube, the perfume, napkins. "It isn't much," I said. "But it feels like everything." He looked through the images, expression calm, and jotted notes in a small notebook. "I'll start today," he said. "I'll update you as soon as I have something. Go home. Act normal." Normal. The word tasted like chalk. That night, the bakery hummed with the comforting rhythm of proofing dough and penciled-in voices. My phone buzzed. A message from Thomas, a single photo attached. Julian, in his favorite pale blue shirt, entering a glossy restaurant, fingers interlaced with a woman's. I zoomed in, and the room tilted. Allison. My daughter-in-law. Her dress was black and tight, her lipstick a fierce red, hair loose and shining. The way they leaned toward each other was not in-law polite. It was private, intimate, practiced. More photos came, candles, a secluded corner, a waiter who knew not to interrupt. Their glasses touched mid-toast. His face, gentle, tender, a softness I hadn't seen directed at me in. I couldn't remember. Not since San Diego nights when we were young and sure forever was ours to command. At 2 a.m, a video arrived. I sat alone in the bakery office, headphones on, the machines ticking behind me. In the grainy clip, Allison leaned in, murmured something that made Julian laugh. A bright, open laugh I hadn't heard at home in years. He held the door for her like a man in love. I watched it again. And again. Each replay was a new bruise. Allison, who'd learned my flan recipe, over my shoulder, who'd called me Mom and asked about my sore wrists after holiday rushes. Allison, who'd sat across family tables far from Julian, barely meeting his eyes. I had mistaken a performance for distance, a carefully staged frosty act for dislike. They had hidden in plain sight. I saved everything, times, dates, locations, the restaurant's name. My hands moved, but my mind was a storm chewing through the rafters of my life. Morning sifted into the bakery as I signed for a bulk flour delivery, the sweetness of vanilla hanging hollow in the air. My phone buzzed. More evidence incoming, Thomas wrote. Photos landed, a downtown law office entryway. Allison beside him in beige, oversized, sunglasses swallowing half her face. Too close. Too comfortable. Then a hotel facade, polished glass, gold letters, followed by a short clip shot from across the street. On a third-floor balcony, his arm circled her waist. She rested her head on his shoulder. A brief, careless kiss, quick as a flicked match, and any remaining hope inside me went up in smoke. I replayed the seconds frame by frame as if stretching them might change their shape. It didn't. A message followed. They rented a room for the afternoon, likely staying overnight. I'll keep eyes on them. A few hours earlier, Julian had texted won't be home, meeting a potential partner from out of town. Get some rest, Juliet. Consider it. Familiar, a lullaby for suspicion. I opened my portable drive and saved each file carefully, naming folders, adding timestamps like knots in a rope that might keep me from washing away. In the video, he brushed a loose strand of her hair back the way he used to do for me when my San Diego curls got in my eyes and we had more dreams than money. For a moment I saw us there, young, certain. Then I saw what we were now, me, steady as a lighthouse, him a ship pretending not to notice the rocks. At family dinners, Allison had sat as far from Julian as seating charts allowed. Sometimes she shot him looks of theatrical annoyance. Daniel would laugh, "Mom, I swear, Allison can't stand Dad," and I'd smile relieved. We watched the show and believed it. They'd choreographed it for us. For me. For my son. For the whole neighborhood. I messaged Thomas back, "Thank you. Please keep watching." "I will," he replied. "Stay calm." That evening, our house felt like a museum after closing. Silent, dim, and full of artifacts that used to be alive. I pulled a thick envelope from the dresser and began printing. Photos of the law office, the hotel entrance, the balcony, stills from the kiss. I slid them in, sealed the flap, and tucked the envelope beneath a stack of old family pictures. I paused at a photo from Daniel's birthday years ago, the four of us smiling like the future owed us good things. Allison hugged my son from the side, eyes bright. Julian rested his hand on my shoulder, proud and solid. I wanted to tear the image along its fault lines and scatter the pieces. Before dawn, the front door creaked. Julian stumbled in, breath sour with liquor. That partner was a nightmare. He groaned, eyes bloodshot. Had to drink a ton. I'm wiped. I stood in the kitchen with a glass of water and the composure of a woman who has already started building her exit. "Rest," I said evenly. "You've got work in the morning." He patted my shoulder again, the gesture now unbearable, and collapsed into bed. Within minutes, he was snoring, the sound smug as a closed door. My phone vibrated. Thomas, voice hushed, said, "I caught audio in the hotel lot. Special mic, they didn't notice. Sending now." "Thank you," I whispered, though my heart was banging against my ribs. The file arrived. I pressed play, headphones sealing me off from the world. Allison's voice came first. Syrupy, hungry, "Dad, hurry up with that fake contract. I want that whole chain already. Get the old woman out of the house." I gripped the phone so hard my hand hurt. Julian answered, smooth and sure. "Don't worry about the paperwork. Juliet doesn't suspect a thing. She trusts me too much." It wasn't just the affair. It was theft, my bakery, the sleepless nights, the deliveries I'd made in rain and heat, the deals I'd negotiated flour, dusted and stubborn. He had never mixed dough, never stood behind the counter through a lunch rush, never sweet, talked a hotel manager into a first order, and now he and Allison were plotting to sign it all out from under me. Tears didn't come. The heat that rose inside me wasn't grief. It was clean and bright and steady as a pilot flame. By mid-morning, Thomas sent new photos, the two of them in Julian's car, a thick stack of papers spread across their laps. Allison marked pages with a red pen. Julian nodded like a man approving his own betrayal. Hearing mention of a notary contact, Thomas texted, "I'll dig further." I zoomed in. I couldn't read the print, but I didn't need to. I knew the shape of a scheme when I saw one. A regular came in. Mrs. Peterson, her smile the kind that warms a room. "Juliet, your shops are buzzing. I'm so proud of you," she said, gathering pastries for her grandkids. "Thank you," I managed. Outside, I handed her the box with a steady grip. Inside, the floor felt like it had shifted 6 inches to the left. That night, under the yellow kitchen light that makes skin look sickly, I sat across from Julian. He ate, chatted about a fussy client, poured himself another glass of wine. Then, casual as a coin tossed in a fountain, he said, "I'll need to sign some business documents this week. You might take a look. Complicated stuff." In my head, Allison's voice purred, "Sign the fake contracts, Dad." I lifted a piece of bread, tore it slowly, smiled the tired smile. "Leave them on the desk. I'll check later," satisfied. Predator patient. More wine, more stories. Finally, he staggered off to bed, keys glinting on the nightstand. I stared at them for a long count of 10. Then I took them, soft as breath, and walked to the garage. Crickets stitched their steady song through the open night. The SUV waited, innocent, complicit, both. The sweet floral scent lingered in the upholstery like a taunt. I opened the console. The tube sat there again, smug in its familiarity. I carried it to the kitchen, washed my hands until the lemon soap cut through the smell clinging to my skin, and reached for a look alike that sets like stone. I worked carefully, leaving everything as it had been, down to the angle of the floor mat and the seat track. In the trunk, an unused condom winked from under a crumpled bag. I photographed it and put it back. Evidence has a way of telling the story, even when nobody wants to hear it. I returned the keys to the nightstand, picked up an old novel, and pretended to read under the dim lamp while my mind charted the next steps. An hour later, he shuffled out for water, spotted the keys, and mumbled, "Still up, Juliet." "Just for a bit," I said. He didn't suspect a thing. At dawn, the bakery's light came up like it always does, flour floating in the air like dusted sunlight. I kneaded with more force than the dough required, shaping something steady with hands that wouldn't stop trembling otherwise. Back home, I plated eggs and toast. He sipped his coffee, and I dropped my line with a calm face I'd rehearsed. "I have to go to Nashville tomorrow. New partner. Might be late. Can you handle dinner?" Surprise flashed across his face, followed by something else. "Not worry. Relief. A big contract," he asked, catching my hand with a tenderness that felt like a borrowed coat. I said. "I'll call if I'm running late." He left for the office. His phone chimed on the table. Missed call. My stomach dropped. I didn't need to see the rest of the name to know. He darted back, snatched the phone, and darkened the screen with a sheepish half-smile. Forgot it. Of course he had. I worked like a machine through the day, but the gears in my head never stopped turning. That night, I pretended exhaustion. "I've got an early bus," I said, slipping into bed. "I'm going to sleep." He patted my shoulder. "Rest, be careful." Seconds after his snoring evened out, he silenced it himself, slid from bed, phone flash lighting the hallway like a firefly. I followed on bare feet and stood behind the living room curtain. He was a shadow by the window, talking softly. "Yes, come by the house tomorrow. No hotel. Juliet's out of town, contract signing. She'll be late." A bright little laugh floated back, Allison's unmistakable. "Perfect," finally. I retreated to our room, opened a drawer, and pulled out Daniel's old college recorder. New batteries. Continuous record. I hid it behind the headboard bookshelf, cable tucked beneath a framed picture from Daniel and Allison's wedding day. The one where we four look like a promise. The irony hurt so sharply I had to sit down. I checked the signal steady. Then I lay down and let my eyes close without sleeping. At 5 the sky was still a dark blue bruise. I stood in the kitchen with cold coffee, staring at a pan with oil on the stove. I'd rigged a simple little trick. Nothing that would ruin a home, just enough to make smoke and panic and noise. Smoke draws crowds, crowds draw truth into daylight. I tested the setup once, quickly, safely, watched a ribbon of smoke curl upward, then shut it down. I left no trace that would tip him off. Jacket on, purse over my arm, I returned to the bedroom, shook his shoulder gently. "I've got to get to the bus station," I said. "If I'm late tonight, don't wait up." He opened one eye, mumbled, "All right, call me," and rolled back into sleep. Instead of the station, I crossed the street to Mrs. Peterson's house. She opened her door in a robe, eyes wide. "Julia, is everything okay? If I need to sit by your window for a few hours, please." She didn't press. She poured coffee, set a chair by the glass, and stood beside me quietly, our reflections watching my front door. At 10, a taxi nosed up to our curb. Allison stepped out in a floral day dress, and big dark glasses like secrets had turned her into a celebrity. Julian cracked the door, scanned the street, and hurried her inside. I opened the recorder app on my phone. The bedroom mic fed straight into my headphones, her laugh, glasses clinking. Footsteps, Julian's voice, "No more hotels." Allison's reply, smug, "The old hag's gone, right?" I bit down on my tongue. A moment later, I didn't need audio to know what the creaking bed meant. I closed my eyes and told myself just a little longer. Then came the panic, Allison's voice high and breathless. "What is this?" "We're stuck, quiet," Julian hissed. "Let me." I tapped my screen and set the smoke in motion. Black plumes curled out the kitchen window. Thick and alarming, Mrs. Peterson gasped. Doors up and down the street flew open. "Fire!" someone shouted. "Call the fire department." I kept my gaze steady, coffee shaking in my hands. Inside my headphones, chaos bloomed, Allison crying, Julian cursing, both of them discovering that what they'd reached for now held on far too tight. Outside, neighbors gathered, murmurs rising like wind in trees. 10 minutes later, sirens split the air, the fire engine skidded to a stop in front of my house, and my son, Fire Chief Daniel Roberts, jumped down, helmet under his arm, eyes sharp and worried. "Gear up," he barked to his team. There might be people inside. A pain like lightning shot through me. My son, who still believed his parents were the safe place the world had promised him. He swung the sledge, splintered the door, and led the charge. The smoke was mostly bluster. The real blaze was in the bedroom. I didn't need eyes to picture what he saw when he turned that corner. His father and his wife, tangled and doomed by their own choices, faces white with fear and shame. From the hall through my headset, I heard Daniel's voice crack. What is this?" A firefighter behind him muttered, "Oh my."